Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar, brought to you by TechStrong. My name is Cody J. Brown, and I will be moderating today's session. We've got an exciting presentation ahead of us, but before we begin, I have just a few housekeeping notes. Today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of the discussion, it will be made available to rewatch. You will receive an email after the webinar concludes with a link to access the on-demand. We encourage discussion by using the chat tab, so please let us know your thoughts, comments, or suggestions, or just say a quick hello. And finally, at the end of today's webinar, we will have a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. Stick around to see if you're one of our 4 lucky winners today. Let's go ahead and kick off our webinar. Our topic, accelerating time to market with value stream management and SAFe. And I'm joined today by Dean Leffingwell, Chief Methodologist and founder of Scaled Agile, and Richard Knaster, VP and Chief Scientist of Value Stream Management for Digital.ai. Dean and Richard, thank you so much for being here with us today. At this point in time, I'll turn the floor over to the both of you to kick us off.
Hello, thank you for joining our webinar today. The title of today's webinar is Accelerating Time to Market with Value Stream Management and SAFe. Our presenters today are Dean Leffingwell and Rich Knaster. Before diving right into it, let me mention a couple housekeeping items. First, this webinar is being recorded, and links to it will be made available after the presentation. Also, if you do have some questions as we are going through the webinar, please use the Q&A functionality as shown in the slide. Now, let me go ahead and introduce our presenters today. Dean Leffingwell, Chief Methodologist and co-founder, Scaled Agile, Inc., and Rich Knaster, VP Chief Scientist, Value Stream Management at Digital.ai. Let me go ahead and ask both of our presenters to briefly introduce themselves. And Dean, let me turn it over to you first.
Okay, thanks, Alex. I'm Dean Leffingwell, who I suppose currently known as the creator of SAFe. That's what I spent my last 10 or 15 years or so doing. Co-founder of Scaled Agile, Inc. I write books, I start companies, and my vocation and avocation are largely inseparable. So I do what I do because of the fun of building some of the world's biggest systems, and I certainly enjoy it. I've worked with Richard, I think off and on for 7 or 8 years directly. So we come together here to talk about a topic that's near and dear to our hearts, and it's an elevation above, I think, just Agile and Scrum and XP, all the way to really thinking about the flow of value through the enterprise. And that's why this topic is important. And that's why when Rich asked if I want to talk on this topic, the answer was absolutely, let's do it.
Great. Rich.
Hello, I'm Rich Knaster, and I'm Vice President and Chief Scientist for Value Stream Management at Digital.ai. And in my current role, I'm responsible for thought leadership for value stream management and helping provide the vision for our value stream management products and helping strategic customers implement value stream management. And I'm really honored to be here with Dean today. I think it's been a while since he and I have presented together. I previously worked for Dean at Scaled Agile as a methodologist and principal consultant, and we've been working together for about 8 years. And I consider Dean to be my mentor and friend, and I'm really appreciative to have him on today's call. And this is definitely a topic that we both are very passionate about, and it's really great that we have an opportunity to talk about this topic.
Thanks, Rich. It's very kind, by the way.
Thank you both. Let's go over to the topics of our webinar today. And for the first one, Dean, let me first turn over to you. What is value stream management, and why does it matter?
So value stream management, it is what it implies. It is the management of the value stream, and that requires that we understand what a value stream is. The value stream is the fundamental construct in Lean. It started in Lean. It started mostly in the manufacturing area, and it was about time to market. It was about how I could deliver products more quickly. It's evolved into R&D, and we use it now in R&D and software development. It really started out as a manufacturing concern. And the concern was, if I want to accelerate the time to market for my widget or my crop combine, what are all the steps in the process? How do they interact? What is the flow of information and materials between the steps? What's the total elapsed time? Where are the delays? And going back to the theory of constraints, where are the bottlenecks? So the value stream itself is a fundamental organizing construct around lean thinking. Therefore, as we've scaled Agile, we found our way to the value stream construct as a fundamental way to think about organizing around value and optimizing delivery. We methodologists argue about lots of things, but I don't think we ever argue about the goal here is to accelerate time to market for innovative, and in our case, digital enabled products and services. Well, in order to do that, you have to know what that time is, and you have to know what all the steps are. And that includes not just the R&D part, but the surrounds, everything from ideation. It includes understanding how things move through the system from a development standpoint, how you get to the operational value streams where systems are actually manufactured and delivered. So there's no, as far as I'm concerned, well, maybe managing WIP would compete with this, but there's no larger topic or no higher value proposition in the whole body of lean than the notion of a value stream. And value stream management is a label that's kind of recently been applied to making that value stream work efficiently.
Thanks, Dean. So just to add to what Dean was saying, I think he provided a really good description of what value stream management is. And I think it's very important for people to know that if you really want to get the full benefits of SAFe, that you have to go from managing projects to then managing value streams. And the work should be managed in development value streams that serve operational value streams. I've seen too many times when organizations have implemented SAFe and they still keep the project model. And unfortunately, they don't get the speed. They're not focused enough on the value. And I've kind of taken a slightly different definition of value stream management, but I think it's completely aligned with what Dean was saying. And that is, I see it as the application of people, process, and technology to improve the flow of value from ideation to customer delivery. And then I think in each of those areas, there are people processes, such as organizing teams around value streams, creating cross-functional teams, organizing value streams in portfolios so we can understand how much investment we're making in each of the different development value streams to make sure that we're putting the effort and the investment in the right places. And then process, such as applying the 5 principles of lean, improving flow with value stream mapping, and really embracing the 7 principles of lean development. And one last area, which is technology. And just as in DevOps, you can't implement DevOps properly without technology. In order to have that fast flow of value, you need to be able to automate things. Very similar to that is with value stream management. In order to gain the visibility into what's going on in the value stream and to govern the DevOps pipeline, you need to get that left to right visibility across all your tooling, which can be very difficult today with all the different tools that are in that DevOps pipeline, and many different teams are using different tooling. So it's very hard to actually see what's going on. So to me, one of the things that I'm excited about value stream management, it kind of provides that view like a catwalk above the manufacturing floor, so you can see what's going on in the value stream from left to right, because you can't see the factory floor in software development, but this really gives you that visibility.
I could build on that a little bit because I fully agree, and I think context always matter. What I described is the general case for what a value stream is and what value stream management is, and you could apply that to understanding the flow of work and in a nonprofit. You could apply that to figuring out what it takes to build a Porsche car. You could apply that to processing purchase orders. You can apply it to anything, but our context is different. We're systems builders here. We're IT people. We still like to write software that makes things go bump in the night, and that's a narrower view. So as we think about value stream management as defined by Digital.ai and Gartner, it's much narrower than I described, and it talks about the flow of value primarily through the development system. And the challenge there is, as Rich called out, when we apply lean and value stream thinking in the manufacturing plant, you can actually see the stuff. You can see it. You can see it pile up. You can see a Kanban card that needs more resistors to be put in because we're about to run out. Our challenge, and of course that's our opportunity, and that's why this is so fun, is we can't see anything. Right? Everything we do is ideas in people's brain that eventually becomes code that nobody can read except the coders themselves. So making our activities and the artifacts tangible, the various artifacts and how they move through the system, that's why the value stream management in our industry is so critical. It's every bit as critical as it is in other domains, and it's harder because we can't see our stuff. So when Richard talks about tooling, he's talking about the tooling around the things we do, the everything from epic position statements to vision statements to understanding the actual code, understanding the tests associated with the code, the protocols for getting the scripts and protocols for getting the code deployed. So we're in a narrower envelope here than what I described. But one of the things I like about value streams is this general applicability case. And as we in the IT world, which is what we're doing here, get asked to say, we want to improve the performance of the business, it's so critical to understand that our value stream is a subset of the larger value stream, and we can instrument and automate it and make it go fast. But in the end, we're still delivering solutions that people need to deploy. So we don't run out of gas when we've just when we've measured and monitored and improved our digital value stream, our technical value stream. We still have tooling and thinking that allows us to deal with some of the larger challenges in the enterprise.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on one thing you said, Dean, that value streams started in manufacturing. And I think that the new innovation with value streams is applying it to software and systems development. And I'm wondering if you can recall when we added value streams in SAFe.
I can, and if you give me a couple minutes, I'll go a little deeper, okay, because this is a fascinating topic. So I'm going to step away here and grab a couple things. Just a couple of works that kind of tell us where we started and where we've ended up in this process. And from the standpoint of where value streams were invented and really described incredibly well, I think the 1996 treatise in lean thinking is still my favorite. And this is where we were literally, over 25 years ago. It's still relevant. The steps, understand value by product, understand understand the steps necessary to create value, continue to optimize the steps. Those are all defined in lean thinking. That's 96. That was before anybody cared about software. And then 2003, 2004, people like Alan Ward came along, and he started opining on applying it to product development. So this is the first book that about 2002 different versions of this that said, let's think about value streams for product development. It still wasn't software, right? It was not related to software. Poppendiek's work, which I don't happen to have handy in my little collection here, also then said, we learned this in lean, but we can apply it to software development. Then we see some pretty seminal works like we'll talk about value stream mapping, I'm sure, in a bit, like this book, Value Stream Mapping by Martin Osterling. Yeah. That really talks about mapping value streams. It's not about value stream identification so much. And then as it started to really bleed into tech big time, it started to appear in like 2016 or so in books like the DevOps Handbook. Now this is a tome for serious people here. This is not a light work, but they talk about technical value streams as being the way to think about how to do DevOps. And we're probably going to discuss the intersection of DevOps and development value streams later. But to answer your question, Rich, it turns out it was about 2013. So it was in SAFe version 2.5, and I went and looked that up today because for the life of me, I couldn't remember that they appeared on the left up here in the corner of the big picture. But then if you watch SAFe migrate, it starts moving to where if you look at the BP now, like behind me, the portfolio is a collection of development value streams. So we've had about 6 or 7 years with it in SAFe. Every year, including the last release, we added in version 5.1, we added operational value streams to SAFe, not as a core construct where we define them and run them, but as our customer, because this development value stream that Richard's talking about serves a customer, either an internal or external one. So I think we've migrated from understanding that this general purpose method around value stream identification, value stream mapping, that grew up through manufacturing where you could see stuff, became even more critical when you couldn't see it. And now you start to think it, you see advanced thinkers like these books and like the people you're talking to here, hopefully understanding that, wow, this is an incredibly powerful tool. And we've just begun, I think, to exploit the power of value stream management and value stream thinking in the context of software development. I think we're still at early times. And I think that, I can maybe speak for myself, not everything old is stupid, and value streams are not new, but they're definitely very insightful and extremely powerful. And it's a tool that's going to help us immensely in our software practice.
Thanks, Dean. And since Dean called it out, let's go to that topic. What is the importance of value stream mapping? Is it different than value stream management? Rich, let me turn it over to you.
It is.
Yes. So,
go ahead,
so
Richard.
Was that question for me?
So, Dean, go ahead. Sorry. And then
go ahead. So they're sometimes used interchangeably. They're absolutely different things, right? Value stream mapping says, I understand a particular value stream that I care about, and I find all the steps in there, and I can understand in each step how long it takes, the delay between the steps, what the probability is that I get a good result. And I can actually do a statistical forecast that says this is going to take us about this long to deliver something. That's value stream mapping. That assumes you know what the value stream is. And with respect to SAFe and with respect to our intangible and really large scale software IT efforts, I mean, you folks and we support the world's largest IT shops. Let's be honest about it. We just had a case study from the Air Force the other day with Grumman that has 10,000 people building systems that are integrally involved in the nation's defense. So those are really big value streams. Well, within that, is that one value stream? The trick for us is, what are the individual elements in the value streams? What are the products? What are the services that are in there? Because that's the thing that actually delivers the value. So identifying the value stream and understanding and then determining what the steps are, that's value stream identification. And in SAFe, I will admit, that's one of the trickiest parts. And people don't always start there because it is hard. They might start by just launching a release train to get a solution out the door that they know they want to deliver. But in the end, they'll come back, and as the SAFe shops mature, they come back to say, one of our problems is we don't have a value stream for that. Or we have this brand new initiative and it's not a core competence. We don't have a value stream for that. We need to create one. Or one of our problems is we've never recognized that, ETL was in the middle of the value stream, or we've never recognized that legal can be a bottleneck when it comes to branding in the value stream. So there's identification and mapping, fundamentally different things, but you can't map a thing you don't understand. And in order to create the understanding, you have to go through this process in your enterprise of saying, what are the value elements that we deliver? And I think as we move from, the world from projects to the world of products, we start to look like tangible solutions. Now that tangible solution might be a platform. It might be something like our Collaborate platform that doesn't do anything until people actually use it. Or it could be an actual end product or service, like a product that I could purchase from Digital.ai. So identification and mapping are fundamentally different. You can't do the second without the first. Different analysis tools, different skills, and different processes.
Yeah, and I often think of value stream mapping as part of the discipline of value stream management. It's one of the tools that you use within value stream management. Of course, there are many tools, but that is perhaps one of the most important ones to understanding how work flows within the organization and how work flows across the organization as well. Because in reality, you have multiple value streams in an organization, and the start and stop of a value stream, you have to define those boundaries because value streams can last forever. But so we have to define the start of that value stream and what its endpoint is when it delivers value And of course, these things operate in a value stream network where you have both business value stream or operational value streams and development value streams working together. And you're going to look at segments of the value stream to look to improve. And I think this kind of really goes well into the next question, which is about how do you implement value stream management in SAFe? And the interesting thing about that is when we implement SAFe, one of the first steps that we do, and can see this on the implementation roadmap in SAFe at the SAFe website, scaledagileFramework.com, is that we identify the value streams and arts, and then we typically pick a value stream and art to begin with and create the implementation plan from there. So we really need to understand the products and services that the organization wants to implement, and then we will determine which value stream that we want to begin implementing based upon a number of factors. So that's where everything starts in SAFe. And as I mentioned before, I think I just really want to stress this. If you're just identifying the value stream, but you're still going to manage in projects, you're not going to get the full benefits of SAFe. And of course, it's a journey to get there. You just don't turn off project right away and start funding value streams and instead of projects, and creating your work systems so that you're working in a value stream and you're having good flow. It takes time for that to happen, but it is definitely that value stream management, implementing that. A good part of it is just built into the process in which we implement SAFe. And value stream mapping is a tool that we use to understand the steps in the value stream for the operational value stream, so that for the development value streams, we can understand what are the systems and the people that are involved in the development value stream, so that we can organize our development value stream in the most optimal way across people, process, and technology.
Richard, you hit on a key point there a couple times that I'm going to belabor a little bit because I think it's so critical and fundamental to this discussion. Traditionally, in the IT shops, we have built things around projects, and projects they have a definition. They have a start and an end, by the way. There's no ambiguity about that. Read the PMBOK guide. When you create a project, you have to organize the people to the project, and there's a start and an end. Value streams have a start and an end, but the start is when somebody makes a pull, a request for a feature or a product, and the end is when they get it. So as long as that product or service is in the market, the value stream persists. So you immediately get away from this non-persistent object called a project, where we literally, bring people to the work. Here's a bunch of work. Let's bring some people to it. Let's do the work. Then what do we do with the people? Well, we can't keep them on it because the project is done. I'll send them someplace else. Completely eliminates that as even a possible paradigm. So if you implement value stream management right, you may find yourself funding new things to do in the value stream, but they're not going to look like projects. And the reason is the thing they're funding is a persistent part of the value of that value stream. So it's a subtle but huge shift to say, if I really understand the value streams, I understand our products and service, I understand all the steps, I don't really need projects. I need new features and new capabilities on the value stream. And occasionally, by the way, I need a new value stream. And occasionally, I need to lower the investment in one or stop a value stream because that product is no longer there. So at the executive level, this is a thinking tool that elevates the discussion, not to what project is being done or who's working on what, but what are we delivering to whom? How good are we at that? How quick are we at that? And what do we need to do next to enhance the total value delivered via this construct?
Yeah, and I think you'll agree that if you want to have stable teams, that you have to manage work in value streams. Just for the reason that you said, a project is a temporary thing, and when it's over, the people get disbanded. And my experience has been, and I'm sure you've had the same thing, Dean, that if you don't have stable teams, it's much harder to go faster. As soon as, and you lose that learning, it's almost criminal that when the project is over, all that learning gets lost because people going back to some other, work and that knowledge is not necessarily maintained.
Yeah,
So
you
I
might
think
as
the only
well.
way to go
You
ahead,
might as
please.
well have contracted it out, right? Because you lose
Right.
that knowledge. Now, you mentioned stable teams. I love stable teams. I'm going to tell you, or I'm going to describe how I think that's a little different than the traditional world looks at. When we create agile teams, we want them to be stable, and some are quite so. And that's because the value stream is quite so. So, for example, there's been a framework team as long as I can remember. Rich served on it a number of years. There's still a framework team. However, as the work in a value stream changes, the way the people work in their teams and the way they literally can join other teams is also not the way they say it in the book. So we may discover that in a particular planning increment, right, a particular PI, there's not a lot of work to do in this team. Well, the teams aren't going to sit there and say, I need to fill myself up for I'm stable. They're going to say there's a lot of work to do in this value stream. So you see an enhanced flexibility. And because we're decentralizing that decision making in the value stream, it doesn't matter if two teams join as one and do their daily stand-ups together. It doesn't matter if a developer who's been a critical bottleneck on one team that's affecting another moves to the other. So this persistence is more value stream and art persistence than it is individual teams. But the other case is there as well. If you're supporting a single product, it may very well be a long life teams. The value streams are long life. The people that delivered are long life. They form an agile teams, which are relatively long life, but that boundary is not the thing that defines them at that point. The thing that defines them is, what does my team need to do next to get work done? Is it a different type of work? Do I want to have one of my teammates work on this other agile team for a while? We're more flexible within the construct of the value stream, but since it's long life, we're naturally more long life too. It's certainly not the project metaphor of, okay, here's a rock, build a rock, go find some people, build the rock. Okay, I'll give me another rock. It doesn't work that way at all.
Great. And with that, let's go to the following question. What are the obstacles to fast value delivery in SAFe? Rich, what's your take on this?
Well, go ahead, Rich.
I think there are a number of obstacles here. First of all is when we work in large batches. And, when you think about it, a project itself is like a large batch of work. And the assumption is that we're going to do all of the work in the project. And that's a really big assumption. And unfortunately, what typically happens is that teams do the easiest stuff first so that they can show fast progress. But in reality, at some point in time, you may run out of time or funding, and then the important work gets left at the end. I think another thing besides working in large batches is that there's too much work in process. What often happens is organizations start a lot of projects, but they don't finish a lot of projects, and that there's this illusion of progress if we start a lot of things. Well, at least it's going on. We've begun the effort. But in reality, the mathematics show that the more things that you start, the less things that you finish. So the lean mantra, and I learned this from Dean, is to stop starting and to start finishing. That's really critical. And handoffs between teams are another big obstacle. And that's why it's so important how we design our value streams and arts, that we're maximizing how we design those value streams and arts so it's maximized for flow. So although we have stable teams in SAFe, we are not locked into them. It's an hypothesis when we design a value stream or an art that it will provide a fast value flow. But if we need to, we can organize and reorganize around those value streams for a faster flow of value, or to work on something that's new. And I think maybe perhaps one of the other things is continuous improvement can be an obstacle. If you're not relentlessly improving how you do work, those are going to be obstacles for flow. And so I'll stop there so we can have an opportunity for Dean to chime in.
Yeah, you mentioned another word here, which is, which we treat as somewhat synonymous, which is work in process. The value stream, mapping function identifies the steps, but it's in the context of lean thinking. And in lean thinking, you have to understand that you're optimizing for the flow of value across the entire value stream. And you also learn that small batches go through the system much quicker. That naturally tends to lead you to flow-based systems, Kanban-like systems, and WIP limits. So while the value streams don't by themselves give you WIP limits, as you map the steps, you start to understand where you want to put the WIP limits. So it's another benefit of value stream thinking is that you'll know the steps now. You'll see where the bottlenecks are, and you'll say, well, we're creating a bottleneck because we should really limit the WIP upstream. Or goodness, we are limiting WIP here, but there's not enough throughput. We need to resource this particular bottleneck. So it's just another element of goodness that these other kind of lean thinking principles around WIP and flow come with it. Value streams are designed to flow. And the reason is they're persistent. We just keep delivering products and services. We keep delivering new features. And that brings the thinking of flow to the value stream as well. So while a value stream by definition is not a flow construct, it is by definition a set of steps that you can optimize for flow.
Right. And I think just to key on something you said regarding WIP limits, one of the big differences between working in a project versus using value stream thinking is that we pull the work. We don't push the work. And so another thing that causes those bottlenecks is when we assign work to people in advance, and then because they're overloaded, they don't get to work on something where somebody else could have pulled that work when they were available, and that would have eliminated that bottleneck right away.
I'm always kind of reminded, Rich, of how much of this goes back to the goal and Goldratt's work in the 90s. And we're still kind of there and still understanding that if you invest in optimizing a thing that isn't the bottleneck, you're probably wasting your money. But if you don't know where the bottlenecks are, you don't know what to optimize for. Value stream mapping will show the bottlenecks. And when you see the bottlenecks and the delays, that's when you start to establish WIP limits or resources. It's not always the case that you need less WIP in this case. Sometimes you need another person, or sometimes you need another flow sorter machine to accelerate the flow through those steps.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, even with the Kanban system, things aren't fully visible. One of the things that I often notice when I'm working with customers is that the development teams think that they're getting their work done on a timely fashion. And the Kanban system shows that. However, what you find out is the team completed the work and it's in a queue to be pulled into a staging or production environment. And what's kind of invisible is that work is staying in that queue for long periods of time, because in effect, if you haven't really implemented DevOps, and if your Kanban isn't designed in a way to make this visible, work will appear that it's done, and in reality, that work has not been released or deployed.
Yeah, I think DevOps 101 starts off with, code to release. It doesn't necessarily address the earlier stages or even the later ones. But the point of the matter is if we accelerate in our development value streams the ability to create new code, but we don't accelerate the ability to test and deploy it, then all we've done is create a new form of inventory called more rotting code. So you have to take the whole systems view, and a value stream by definition does that. A development value streams take a systems view. It talks about when we decide we want to do something, to when it becomes code, to when it's deployed, to when it's released. And it can even start to worry about, measuring and monitoring the code in production, because that's part of the value delivered.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking when I was mentioning that comment about the way the Kanban systems are. And often it ends with done, but exactly what done means, it can be much different. And we know we have a scalable definition of done in SAFe, but just a generic done doesn't tell you really where you are. It's not until you are measuring that particular feature or whatever you've implemented is when you can really know that the work is truly, quote, done. And of course, once you measure it, you may decide, well, we're not really getting the benefits of this feature. And I think that it's all too prevalent today that organizations have become really fast at delivering features, but they're kind of a feature factory, and they pump out a lot of new features, but not necessarily a lot of new value. In fact, when I talk with my son, he works for a large cable company, and what I hear is that they put out a lot of features, but what they find now that they're measuring using tools like Pendo is that a lot of features have not even been found. So they can't even get the benefits of those features because in effect they're invisible. But for some reason, there is more focus on velocity and speed rather on, are we actually getting the value from what we've just implemented?
Yeah, value streams force that discussion. In SAFe, they're anchored by KPIs. So we don't create a value stream and just say we should have this product. We say, and that's going to produce KPIs like this. We're going to measure that. So value streams by definition are outcome based. Yeah, you look at the process for sure, because you can't improve outcomes if you don't improve the process. But the goal of value stream is the outcome. And KPIs and outcome measures are very easy to associate with a value stream or a product in a value stream. Not so easy to associate with a product, and hard to bring really responsibility and accountability to the business outcomes if you don't know that this service is actually consumed by this people, or these features that we've developed just went in inventory. Nobody can find them because the UI doesn't support it.
Great. Well, we do have several questions from the audience that has come in, but before we get to those, Rich, let me ask you the very last bullet here on our screen, which is, how do you leverage the Digital.ai DevOps value stream delivery solution for SAFe?
Yeah, so I happen to have a slide on that, and
I'm shocked.
So we recently introduced a new solution called our DevOps value delivery system for DevOps value stream delivery for SAFe. And it's what's really cool about this, it's the only solution that has both value stream delivery tools such as Digital.ai Agility, which for most of you, you'll remember the product called version 1. Version 1 has been rebranded and it is now called Agility. And we also have from Zebia Labs, now Digital.ai Release and Deploy is part of this solution as well. And along with that, besides having those tools which operate together in the value stream, we also have our analytics solution. So we have these things that we call lenses. So we have a plan and create lens. So you can see what's happening with with lean portfolio management. How are we doing with our epics? How are we doing with our features? And then seeing, have they been moved into the release? We can get real statuses based upon where the code has been deployed. We have a really good solution for understanding the release processes and automating them as much as possible. We have other lenses for threats, for security. Cybersecurity has become a really huge deal today. And we also have lenses to get insight into the integration and testing. And finally, operate and monitoring. We want to be able to measure not only development outputs, but being able to measure business outcomes. And even more so, what we want to try to do is, can we correlate when we deploy a new feature or product, can we correlate those development code has been deployed? We have a really good solution for understanding the release processes and automating them as much as possible. We have other lenses for threats, for security. Cybersecurity has become a really huge deal today. And we also have lenses to get insight into the integration and testing. And finally, operate and monitoring. We want to be able to measure not only development outputs, but being able to measure business outcomes. And even more so, what we want to try to do is, can we correlate when we deploy a new feature or product, can we correlate those development outputs to actual business outcomes? And while that's not easy to do, there are many signals that we can look at to see whether or not we're getting the value. So for example, we can take in Pendo data and see, is the feature being used? How many times has it been used? Is there satisfaction about using that feature, and so on? And we also have OKRs that we can get information on and see, are we moving the needle on our business, on our strategic themes, which we often document as OKRs. We'll be looking at annual recurring revenue, some sales numbers, and et cetera. So we'll be able to correlate both the business and the development work together, so we get a more complete picture of what's really happening in our value streams, because we just can't be concerned about our development value streams. We also need to be concerned about, are we getting success with our operational value streams? And then I think one of the coolest things of our solution is the ability to use artificial intelligence and to help analyze things. So one of the big problems that I see in every organization is that when they go to release something, especially in a large organization, so many complex systems, it's not unusual for things to blow up in production. And so imagine if you can do change risk prediction and look at a number of different factors, and for the machine learning to understand what are the common cases of change failure. And if we're going to fail, well, let's fix those things before we move them to production. And we have similar artificial intelligence for understanding flow bottlenecks as well. And also taking in data from our monitoring and understanding where are the customer complaints coming from, and being able to understand where are the majority of the complaints coming from. And sometimes if you just fix 20% of the problems, of the issues, it fixes 80% of the problems. So it's going to be a really great solution. And the other cool thing is we have a safe lens now as well. So all the safe metrics that are, and KPIs that Dean mentioned before, those will be available in the platform as well. So we'll have flow metrics, we'll have door metrics, we'll have the KPIs that Dean mentions, and it will really be a solution that really helps you optimize delivery with the world's most popular framework for scaling.
Great. Thank you, Rich. So with that, let's get to several questions that we've gotten from our audience. And the first one is, what is the difference between an art and a value stream?
Well, they're closely related, but they're absolutely not the same thing. Let me start with the art. Art is a group of people working together to deliver a solution. That's what they do. It's an organization. It's typically a virtual organization because we don't force, a redesign of the organization around products necessarily to get started with SAFe. But that's the people that do the work, and they deliver products and services. Now, I might have 2 or 3 very different things inside an art that are really individual value streams. They're different products, and they go to different people. So I could actually have one art deliver more than one value stream. But the other case is more typically the case in the large enterprise. It may take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and I mentioned one that takes 10,000 to deliver value. In that case, the art is an element of a value stream, and the larger thinking is around is, what does that larger value stream look like? So the mapping from an art to a value stream is not one-to-one or one-to-many or many-to-one. It's whatever makes sense for the value streams relative to your organizational size. So one single art could handle a couple unique products, in which case I could do 2 value streams in an art, or more likely it might take 3, 4, or 5 different arts to realize a specific value stream. For example, a securities trading product.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Dean. And I think the interesting thing is that we organize people using both of those constructs, value streams and arts. But the art is really a team, whereas a value stream is a slightly different construct. The teams are inside the art. In fact, we call an agile release train a team of agile teams, and there are also practices and principles that are related to arts that makes them different than the value streams. Arts are within the value stream.
Value stream is a set of steps. An art is a group of people working together to deliver end user value.
Right, and the value streams of the process is the interconnected processes, that the steps that you're talking about.
Great. Here's another one. Which SAFe principles apply to value stream management?
Well, probably not surprisingly, a number, but not all specifically. I think that if you look at the SAFe principles, I'd start with number 2, apply systems thinking. Now, our work is very heavily influenced by folks like Deming, who is, one of my heroes in terms of systems thinking. And systems thinking basically says, what are you not considering that has an impact on the outcome? So systems thinking would say, well, yeah, I can't just optimize a component. If I optimize my ability to produce code, but I don't optimize my ability to deploy code, I haven't accomplished anything. So systems thinking is absolutely there. Value streams lend themselves to our principle number 6, which is visualize and limit WIP, reduce batch sizes, and manage queue links. That's really flow. It's flow 101, and it's a power pack principle. But we visualize and limit where? In the steps in the value stream. Reduce batch sizes where? In the individual steps. And manage queue links. If the queues are getting big, you're basically building inventory or wait cycle build right in. And then the one that we added just a few years back, I know it's always tricky when you add principles. It says, well, we didn't get them right. But guess what? This is software. We don't always get it right. Is organizing around value. And now in the larger enterprise, it's true that the value stream is a primarily organizational tool that says people from this division, and this division, and this supplier. We need Grumman to help with this. We need somebody else to help with this. It's a primary organizational construct. It says who's going to work together. Okay, and that's not strictly an art question. That can be shared services, multiple arts, where the customers come from, et cetera. So I would say it's those 3. Definitely takes a systems view, and that's what you see here in the digital AI solution set. There are individual elements and components of this system, but the value in the solution set is the systems view it takes to give it across all. Flow, value streams can flow. I don't know how to make projects flow at all. I don't even know how to think about the problem. And then lastly, that's the way we're going to do, or that's the way we're going to start thinking about organization. So I think those 3 are the winners when it comes to directly supporting value stream thinking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the only thing I could probably add to that answer is some values that we have in SAFe, such as alignment and transparency. They're not
true
principles, but certainly we want to have alignment across our value streams and arts, and transparency is so important to our value streams.
All true.
Great. And this question we've touched briefly on. What does DevOps have to do with value stream?
Well, if you look at a development value stream, there's a big piece of it where all this code that people like us create goes into production to be managed and monitored by people that are held responsible for extremely high degrees of reliability. Every time we put something new in there, we disturb their system. And historically, DevOps is a concatenation of Dev and Ops, which were historically silos. So if you look at the DevOps part, the part where code goes to deploy and gets to release, that's absolutely integral to the development value stream. So you can't do value stream management without good DevOps. You can't improve it. And by the way, DevOps needs to understand which value stream it's supporting. In the handbook, and I understand there's a new version. I haven't gotten it yet. They talk about how the technical value streams are the primary organizational contract for implementing DevOps. If you're in a traditional environment, if your company's been around for 20 years, you've got legacy systems. You've been around for longer, you have even more. Well, how do you do DevOps across a dozen different platforms? Well, you don't. You have to figure out what really matters. What value stream are we trying to emphasize? So I think value stream thinking gives the DevOps people and practices a focus that says, let's work on this value stream. So they're a subset. I mean, when you take a systems view, DevOps is in there. You can't avoid it. And believe me, if you don't get that right, I recently, in my keynote, I basically said, we've got to double down on DevOps, because that's where it is that we bog down in terms of our ability to deliver value. So it's part and parcel of the value stream. And it's basically a set of segments in the value stream, but it's fundamental to the ability to deliver value in our software world.
Yeah, absolutely, Dean. And each Agile release train either shares or builds a DevOps, a continuous delivery pipeline. And it's one of the most important aspects of being able to apply automation to various processes such as continuous exploration, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and finally being able to release when the business wants us to, or what we call release on demand in the framework. So it's such an integral part of SAFe and also of value streams. Each value stream is going to at least have one continuous delivery pipeline. That would be the ideal situation that are shared by a number of trains, one or more trains, and that also helps us work in small batches. It helps to make sure that things are done correctly, and that there's less times where we have to return work to a prior step. So it increases the complete and accuracy of work within the development value stream because of the automation. We have a repeatable process that we can use for many steps in the value stream.
Great, thank you. So for the benefit of our audience, let me ask one last question from myself. If I want to learn more about value stream management, how and where can I do that?
Well, I'm going to be parochial. Of course, you can go to SAFe, but I will also say that the Digital AI book, the ebook on value stream management, is probably the most focused and accessible work that I've seen. So you don't need to read the 8 books that I've shown. If you pick up that ebook and read it through, and by the way, it's not a trivial work. It's not a 1,500-word SAFe article. You'll learn a ton about it. And at the same time, click on the value stream articles in SAFe and browse around SAFe. SAFe has a challenge. It doesn't tell its own story. And that's why Digital AI and Richard wrote the ebook to describe VSM. So if I really want to know more about VSM, I'd go right there and I'd read the few SAFe articles that are directly related to VSM.
Thank you for the kind words, Dean. And you can find the ebook at Digital.ai, and it's a free download.
Yeah. So that's all the questions that we have. So I really appreciate both of your times. And let me just give one more round, an opportunity to wrap things up to both of you. If there's anything else that you want to cover.
Well, I'm just kind of happy to be here with this conversation because I truly believe that that this notion, which is not new at all, brings a systems view to the application development lifecycle, and it's just starting to give us the thinking tools we need to improve time to market. So I think this is a very critical topic. It's not going away. It's not a fad. It's the way we're going to think about delivery. So that's why I thought this would be an interesting webinar to join in on.
Yeah, and thanks so much, Dean, for joining. It's really great to have an opportunity to pair with you again. It's been a while since we've been able to do that. This is one of my passions, and I learned this passion from you, Dean. And I joined in 2013 at Scaled Agile, and I think, as far as I know, it was the only framework at the time that had value streams in the framework. And it wasn't until maybe a year or so ago that Discipline Agile started mentioning value streams in there. And I think that based upon the work that you've done, you have really popularized value stream management. So a big kudos to you for that. And I've learned so much about it. And I'll just mention one other place where you can also find more information on value streams, and that is at the Value Stream Management Consortium. And that's valuestreamconsortium.org. And there's also a new course there, Value Stream Management Foundation course. So you might also want to look at that as well. And of course, the SAFe courses, like Leading SAFe, has quite a bit of value stream management in there. And I think probably the DevOps course would be another place where you can learn about value streams. What else am I missing, Dean, in terms of that? I think
those are the highlights for sure. You can't take a SAFe course without discovering value streams. And our DevOps course is value stream based. How could it not be?
Right.
All right. Well, Dean and Rich,
thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And to our audience, thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well, outstanding. I'd like to thank our panel for taking the time to be with us today. If there were any questions we did not get to address, we will be sending those over to the folks at Digital.ai, and they'll get those answered for you after the webinar concludes. A quick reminder that today's session was recorded, so following this webinar, you'll receive an email with a link to access the recording on demand. You can also find the recording living on the DevOps website, so just visit devops.com/webinars and look in the on-demand section. They'll be waiting for you. On to the 4 winners of our $25 Amazon gift card drawings. Our first winner is Diego G. Congratulations, Diego. Our second winner is Katie N. Congratulations, Katie. Our third winner is David C. Congratulations, David. And our fourth and final winner is Layla N. Congratulations, Layla, and our other 3 winners. Dean, Richard, again, thank you so much for taking the time to put together this program. And I would also like to thank you, our audience, for being with us for the entirety of the presentation. This is Cody J. Brown signing off. Have a great day, everyone.